New York City, December 1979. The wind howling down 8th Avenue was sharp enough to cut glass, the kind of cold that settles in your bones and refuses to leave. Outside the stage door of Carnegie Hall, a black limousine was idling, its exhaust pumping white clouds into the freezing night air. But inside the doorway, huddled against the brickwork to steal a little escaping heat, was a 19-year-old boy named Leo. He had $3 in his pocket, a coat that was too thin for the season, and a guitar case held together with duct tape. He wasn't waiting for an autograph. He was waiting because he had nowhere else to go. He had been sleeping in the subway station at 50th Street for 3 weeks, dodging transit cops and washing his face in diner bathrooms. But every night, he stood here, humming. That night, the door swung open. A group of men in thick wool coats stepped out, surrounding a smaller man in a tuxedo, a man who moved with the easy grace of a prize fighter, the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra. He looked tired. He wanted a drink. He wanted to go home. But then, through the sound of the wind and the traffic, he heard it. A low, trembling baritone voice singing the bridge to "In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning." Frank stopped dead in his tracks. He raised a hand, silencing his bodyguards. He turned towards the shadows. He saw a kid, shivering, blue-lipped, but holding a note with a purity that broke Frank's heart right there on the sidewalk. Frank walked over, the snow crunching under his Italian leather shoes. Leo stopped singing, terrified, eyes wide. Frank tilted his head, looking the kid up and down. "You got a name, kid?" Frank asked, his voice like gravel and velvet. "Leo," the boy stammered. "Leo Rossi." Frank nodded slowly. "Well, Leo Rossi, you're flat on the G-sharp. But you got more soul in that one wrong note than most guys have in a whole career. You hungry?" Leo nodded, tears instantly freezing on his cheeks. Frank opened the car door. "Get in, we're going to Patsy's. By the way, tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from?" To understand how Leo ended up shivering outside Carnegie Hall, we have to rewind the tape. His story didn't start in Manhattan. It started across the river in a cramped, peeling apartment in Newark, New Jersey. Leo was born into a house that was always loud, but never happy. His father was a dock worker with a heavy hand and a short temper, a man who thought music was a waste of time for dreamers and bums. His mother, Maria, was a saint who worked double shifts at a bakery, trying to keep the peace. The only time the house was quiet, the only time it felt safe, was when Maria played her scratched vinyl records on Sunday mornings. That was Leo's church. Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, and the king of them all, Sinatra. When Leo was 10, he found a beat-up acoustic guitar in a pawn shop window. It took him 6 months of delivering newspapers to buy it. He hid it under his bed. When his father was out drinking, Leo would pull it out, pressing his ear against the wood so he could play without making too much noise. He taught himself chords by listening to the radio. He learned how to breathe by listening to Frank. He learned that a song wasn't just a melody. It was a 3-minute play, a confession. He learned that you could tell the truth in a song in a way you never could in real life. But secrets in a small apartment don't last forever. When Leo was 16, his father found the guitar. He smashed it against the radiator in a fit of rage, screaming that he wouldn't raise a useless musician. That night, the music stopped in the Rossi house. But the music inside Leo didn't. It just went underground, growing deeper, sadder, and more desperate. 2 years later, his mother passed away from a sudden heart attack. With Maria gone, the buffer between Leo and his father evaporated. The house became a war zone. 2 weeks after the funeral, after a particularly brutal argument, Leo packed a bag. He took his mother's photo, a handful of cash from her cookie jar, and he walked out. He took the PATH train to New York City, believing the lie that every dreamer believes, that the city was waiting for him. It wasn't. New York in the late 70s was a bruised, gritty place. Leo bounced from cheap hostels to park benches. He played for change in Washington Square Park, competing with jugglers and magicians. He learned that talent doesn't mean much when you're hungry. He learned that the city doesn't care if you have the voice of an angel. It will still let you freeze. By December 1979, Leo was broken. He had sold his replacement guitar for food money. He was invisible. He spent his days riding the subway to stay warm and his nights loitering near the theaters, just to be close to the magic he couldn't touch. He felt like a ghost haunting his own life. Standing outside Carnegie Hall that night, he wasn't looking for a break. He was saying goodbye. He was singing In the Wee Small Hours because he decided it was going to be his last song before he gave up and went back to Newark, back to the factory life his father wanted for him. He didn't know that the man who made that song famous was 10 feet away. Frank Sinatra sat across from Leo in the private booth at Patsy's Italian restaurant on 56th Street. The waiters, who knew Frank better than they knew their own families, had already brought a plate of clams posilipo and a bowl of pasta fazool. Leo ate like a wolf, his hands shaking. Frank just sipped his Jack Daniels, watching the kid over the rim of the glass with those piercing blue eyes. He didn't see a homeless kid. He saw a mirror. He saw the skinny kid from Hoboken he used to be, the kid with the big ears and the burning ambition, the kid who was afraid he'd never be heard. "You got family, Leo?" Frank asked, lighting a cigarette. "No, sir, not anymore," Leo said, wiping tomato sauce from his lip. "Don't call me sir. Call me Frank. Or Francis if you're mad at me." Frank leaned in. "You know why I stopped the car?" Leo shook his head. "Because I was loitering?" "Because you were phrasing," Frank corrected him. "You didn't rush the lyric. You waited. You let the silence do the work. Who taught you that?" "You did, Frank," Leo whispered. "I listened to your records. Only the Lonely. That album, it kept me alive." Frank was silent for a long moment. He looked away, staring at the mural on the wall. The public thought Frank Sinatra was bulletproof, a swaggering legend who owned the world. But Frank knew the darkness. He knew what it was like to lose your voice, to lose your wife, to be laughed at by the press. He knew what it was like to be cold. He turned back to Leo. "You got a place to sleep tonight?" "The train station is okay, really," Leo lied. Frank slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "Don't you lie to me, Pally. I can see the street on you. I can smell the fear. You're done with that." Frank snapped his fingers for his bodyguard, Jilly. "Jilly, get the kid a room at the Waldorf. Put it on my tab. Get him a barber, get him a suit. A real suit, not that polyester garbage. And get him a guitar." Leo dropped his fork. "Mr. Frank, I can't pay you back." Frank stood up, putting on his coat. "I didn't ask for payment. I asked for you to be ready. Be at Slick's studio tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Don't be late. I hate late." The next morning, Leo woke up in a bed that felt like a cloud. He walked into the marble bathroom and looked in the mirror. He saw the dirt, the hollow cheeks, the fear. But behind the eyes, he saw a tiny spark that hadn't been there the day before. If you love stories about second chances and the legends who give them, please subscribe for new stories. We are building a community of people who believe that it's never too late for a new chapter. When Leo arrived at the studio the next day, clean-shaven and wearing a suit that actually fit, he looked like a different person. But inside, he was still the scared kid from Newark. The studio was intimidating. Microphones that cost more than his father made in a year, gold records on the walls, musicians tuning up who had played with Count Basie and Duke Ellington. Frank was in the control booth talking to his conductor, Don Costa. When he saw Leo, he didn't smile. He just pointed to the vocal booth. "Get in there. Let's see if it was the cold air or if you can actually sing." Leo walked into the booth. He put on the headphones. The orchestra started playing a lush, sweeping arrangement of Stardust. Leo opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His throat closed up. The fear paralyzed him. The music swelled, but Leo stood there, silent, trembling. The music stopped. The silence in the studio was deafening. The intercom clicked. "What's the matter, kid?" Frank's voice was impatient. I can't," Leo stammered. "I don't belong here. Frank. I'm a street kid. I'm nobody." Frank walked out of the booth. He walked into the live room, waving the musicians to take 5. He walked up to Leo, grabbed him by the shoulders, and looked him dead in the eye. "Listen to me," Frank said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You think I was born in a tuxedo? You think I didn't have doors slammed in my face? I was a delivery boy. I was a rivet catcher in a shipyard. People told me I was too skinny, too ugly, too Italian. They said my voice was too soft." Frank tightened his grip. "You're not nobody. You're an artist, and an artist takes his pain, all that cold, all that hunger, all that loneliness, and he puts it into the microphone. You don't sing to impress these guys. You sing for the kid you were yesterday. You sing for the guy shivering outside. Do you understand me?" Leo nodded, tears welling up again. "Now," Frank stepped back. "Close your eyes. Forget the room. It's just you and the music. Don't sing the notes. Sing the story." Leo closed his eyes. He thought about the frozen nights. He thought about his mother's tired smile. He thought about the empty apartment in Newark. When the orchestra started again, Leo didn't just sing. He poured his soul out. He sang with a cracked, vulnerable beauty that was entirely his own. When he finished the last note, holding it until his breath ran out, he opened his eyes. The musicians were staring. Don Costa had put down his baton. Frank was leaning against the piano, a small, unreadable smile on his face. "Okay," Frank said softly. "Now we're getting somewhere." For the next 6 months, Leo lived a double life. By day, he was Frank Sinatra's shadow. He watched Frank rehearse, watched him handle the press, watched him command a room just by walking into it. Frank taught him everything. How to hold a cigarette so it looked elegant, not nervous. How to articulate consonants so the guy in the back row could understand every word. How to protect his voice from the smoke and the whiskey. But mostly, he taught him about dignity. "You gotta respect the audience," Frank told him one night at Jilly's. "They worked all week to buy that ticket. You owe them everything. You leave your blood on that stage every single night." But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The press got wind of Frank's project. The tabloids were ruthless. "Sinatra's stray puppy," one headline read. "Old Blue Eyes loses his mind over busker." People whispered that Leo was just a charity case, a rich man's hobby. Leo read the papers. The doubt started to creep back in. He felt like a fraud. One night, after a rough rehearsal where he couldn't get a song right, Leo packed his bag again. He left a note on the table in his hotel room. "Frank, thank you for everything. But they're right. I'm not you. I'm just Leo." He made it as far as the lobby before security stopped him. 10 minutes later, Frank stormed into the lobby, wearing a bathrobe over his tuxedo pants, looking furious. "Where? Do you think you're going?" Frank barked, scaring the tourists at the check-in desk. "I'm saving you the embarrassment," Leo shouted back, the first time he had ever raised his voice to Frank. "I can't be what you want me to be. I'm not a star." Frank grabbed the note from Leo's hand and tore it up. "I don't want you to be a star. Stars burn out. I want you to be a musician, and musicians don't quit just because the rhythm gets tricky." Frank softened, stepping closer. "Kid, I'm performing at the Rio in Las Vegas next week. I want you to open for me." Leo's jaw dropped. "The Rio? Vegas? I can't do Vegas, Frank. I'll freeze." "Then freeze." Frank shrugged. But do it on stage. Do it where it matters. If you walk out that door now, you'll be running for the rest of your life. Is that what you want?" Leo looked at the door. Then he looked at Frank. He realized that Frank wasn't just teaching him how to sing. He was teaching him how to stand. The night of the show, Las Vegas was buzzing. The marquee outside the Rio glowed in neon gold. Frank Sinatra. And underneath, in smaller letters, "Introducing Leo Rossi." Backstage, the air was thick with hairspray, cigarette smoke, and nervous energy. Leo was in his dressing room, pacing. He felt like he was going to throw up. He could hear the hum of the crowd. 2,000 people waiting for the legend. And they were going to get him. 5 minutes to curtain. Frank walked in. He looked immaculate in his tuxedo, a glass of Jack in his hand, an orange pocket square perfectly folded. He looked at Leo, who was pale as a sheet. Frank didn't offer a pep talk. He walked over, straightened Leo's tie, and dusted invisible lint off his shoulder. "You remember what I told you about the microphone?" Frank asked. "Treat it like a lady," Leo recited automatically. "No," Frank smiled. "Treat it like a confession booth. Tell them the truth. If you tell the truth, they can't hurt you." Frank turned to leave, then stopped. "And Leo, I put a stool out there. If your knees shake, sit down. Make it look like a style choice. That's what I do." The lights went down. The announcer's voice boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Leo Rossi." The applause was polite, scattered. Who was this kid? Leo walked out. The spotlight hit him like a physical blow. He couldn't see the audience, just a sea of darkness and cigarette embers. He walked to the microphone. His hand was shaking so badly the mic stand rattled. Someone in the back heckled, "Bring out Frank!" Leo froze. The fear washed over him, a cold tide. He looked into the wings. Frank was standing there in the shadows, watching. Frank didn't signal him to keep going. He didn't look angry. He just nodded once, a simple, solid nod. "I'm here." Leo took a deep breath. He grabbed the microphone stand with both hands to steady it. He didn't signal the band to start the upbeat swing number they had rehearsed. Instead, he turned to the pianist. "Just me," he whispered. "Play the ballad." Leo closed his eyes. He forgot Vegas. He forgot the heckler. He went back to the street corner outside Carnegie Hall. He started to sing "Angel Eyes." No orchestra, no brass. Just a lonely piano and a boy who knew what it meant to lose everything. "Hey, drink up, all you people, and order anything you see." The room went silent. The clinking of glasses stopped. The waiters stopped moving. Leo's voice floated through the massive showroom, haunting, broken, and achingly real. He wasn't imitating Frank anymore. He was Leo Rossi. He was singing about his father, about the cold nights, about the hope that almost killed him. When he hit the final line, "Excuse me, while I disappear," he whispered it, letting the note fade into absolute silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Leo opened his eyes, terrified he had failed. Then it started. A low rumble, growing into a roar. People stood up. The applause crashed over him like a wave. It wasn't the polite applause of a warm-up act. It was the roar of recognition. They had felt it. Leo looked to the side of the stage. Frank Sinatra was standing there, clapping. And he was smiling, a genuine ear-to-ear grin that lit up the darkness. After that night, everything changed. Leo didn't become an overnight sensation like Elvis or the Beatles. That wasn't his path. But he became a working musician. He recorded an album, The Long Way Home, produced by Frank Sinatra. It was a critical darling, a collection of torch songs that made people cry in their drinks. He toured the country, playing jazz clubs and theaters. He bought a house, a real house with a backyard, in upstate New York. He met a girl named Clara, a cellist, and they got married in a small ceremony where the best man was a guy named Francis from Hoboken. But the most important part of the story isn't the records or the applause. It's what happened 10 years later. It was 1989. Leo was playing a club in Chicago. It was snowing, a bitter winter night. After the show, Leo was leaving through the back door, his guitar case in hand. Near the dumpster, curled up in a cardboard box, was a kid, maybe 16, shivering violently. Leo stopped. He looked at his warm tour bus waiting for him. Then he looked at the kid. He remembered the feeling of the wind on 8th Avenue. He remembered the despair. And he remembered the hand that had pulled him out of the cold. Leo walked over to the kid. "Hey," he said softly. "You hungry?" The kid looked up, eyes wide with fear. "I don't have any money." Leo smiled. It was the same smile Frank had given him in the limo. "I didn't ask if you had money. I asked if you were hungry." Leo took off his expensive wool scarf and wrapped it around the kid's neck. "Come on, there's a diner around the corner. My treat." That moment was the true legacy. Frank didn't just save Leo's career, he taught Leo how to save others. If you want to join us on this journey of uncovering the most touching stories in music history, make sure to subscribe for new stories. We have so much more to tell you. Frank Sinatra passed away in 1998. The whole world mourned. The lights on the Las Vegas Strip were dimmed in his honor. But at the funeral, amidst the presidents, the movie stars, and the royalty, sat a middle-aged man in a dark suit, tears streaming down his face. Leo Rossi. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't tell everyone I knew him. He just sat there, holding a worn-out guitar pick in his pocket, the one Frank had given him that first day in the studio. After the service, Leo went to the cemetery alone. He stood by the grave, the silence of the afternoon wrapping around him. He didn't say a prayer. Instead, he started to hum. Softly at first, then a little louder. He sang the bridge to "In the Wee Small Hours." You'd be his if only he would call. He finished the song, wiped his eyes, and looked at the headstone. "Thanks, boss," he whispered, "for the soup, for the suit, for the life." Leo Rossi is in his 60s now. He still plays. He runs a music program in Newark for underprivileged kids, teaching them how to play instruments, how to read music, and how to carry themselves with dignity. He tells them stories about the chairman. He tells them, talent is a gift, but character is a choice. Every December, on the anniversary of the night they met, Leo travels to New York City. He goes to 56th Street. He stands outside Carnegie Hall in the cold just for a few minutes. He closes his eyes and listens. And if the wind is blowing just right, through the noise of the taxis and the sirens, he can still hear that gravel and velvet voice saying, "Get in, kid. We're going to Patsy's." The world knew Frank Sinatra as the voice, the leader of the Rat Pack, the man who did it his way. But to one shivering boy in 1979, he was simply the man who opened the door when everyone else had locked it. It reminds us that the greatest measure of success isn't how high you climb, but how long of a ladder you build for the person behind you. Before you go, I have one favor to ask. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of mentorship, please subscribe for new stories and share this video with someone who needs a little hope today. And don't forget to check out the other videos on our channel. Until next time, keep listening to the music.